The series begins during the COVID-19 pandemic, where the world is completely ruined for everyone and everything has ground to a halt. There are those who take the path of crime just to make money, and there are those who stand firm in their principles no matter how hard life hits them, refusing to accept a single dirty penny. This is exactly like our hero Kim. We see him resolving a conflict on a bus because a drunk passenger wanted to board without a mask and the driver refused. Kim steps in and politely gets him off the bus. The man tries to start a fight with him, but Kim dodges his punches with absolute smoothness because he is actually a professional boxer. It is immediately clear how kind-hearted our hero is. He minds his own business and avoids trouble. When he returns home, he finds his mother on the phone, practically begging the man she owes money to, asking him to give her a chance to pay her debts because her cafe is completely empty. She tells him that everything is stuck because of COVID. Everyone is staying home, nobody is going out, and she doesn't have the money to pay. But the man coldly tells her that he doesn't care. Kim overhears the conversation and feels deeply saddened by his mother's situation, so he decides to help her. The next day, Kim is competing in a boxing championship. The announcer is highly praising him, showing how famous he is, saying his right hand doesn't play games, his left hand never fails to break through, and he is widely known as the master of the knockout punch. Kim unleashes a powerful blow that completely terrifies his opponent. He dominates the ring, and our hero manages to reach the finals. There, he faces a young man named Jin, who has won the championship for the past 2 years by successfully provoking his opponents. Jin usually exploits his opponents when they get angry, launching sneak attacks and relentlessly breaking their facial bones. Jin tries to provoke Kim, but Kim anticipates his move, counters with a left hook that knocks Jin flat on the canvas and wins the championship. Kim takes the prize money and waits outside for Jin to invite him out for a meal as an apology for what happened in the ring. They go to a restaurant together, where Jin tells him that he won't be won over easily and wants the most expensive food on the menu. Our hero responds that his absolute limit is $5,000 because he needs to give the rest of the money to his mother to pay off their debts. Afterward, they sit and eat together, and Jin is shocked to learn that Kim is a former Marine. He immediately starts talking to him with utmost formality and respect. When he realizes that Kim is younger than him but senior to him in rank, Jin shows immense pride in the Marine Corps. However, our hero is incredibly humble and tells him to just act normal around him because it really doesn't matter. From that moment, Jin says they are officially friends, and the next treat is on him. They agree to meet again, and thus begins the friendship of the two closest companions in the world. Our hero returns to his mother and hands her the money. She thanks him and says she was watching the match and is so proud of him. Their deep bond is undeniable. The next day, Kim goes to his training session but finds the gym closed because someone there contracted COVID. He calls his friend Jin, who sends him his address so they can hang out together. When Kim arrives, he sees a girl chasing a man named Dong. As usual, our hero cannot help himself. He sticks his nose into things that don't concern him and runs after the girl. She stops, shocks him with a taser, and asks why he is chasing her and who sent him. He begins apologizing to her, saying it is a misunderstanding and that he wanted to rescue Dong from her. She snaps back that Dong is a con artist and a thief, telling Kim to mind his own business. Kim goes to hang out with his friend, and they spend the day together, while the girl heads to her grandfather, Mr. Choi. We learn that this girl is our heroine, Cha. She works with her grandfather, who happens to be the only man left who lends people money without any interest, just so they can survive and get through their crises. Cha tells him that she stole Dong's watch, calling him Papa. We notice how deeply attached she is to her grandfather, to the point of calling him Papa because he raised her. The grandfather tells her the watch is worth double the amount he owes them, but she responds that he is a scammer who didn't want to pay, so they should consider it interest instead of working for free. He answers that he gives her a 3% commission, but she fires back that he isn't making any profit himself. He tells her that as long as he has enough, he is content, sharing that a woman just took a loan to treat her sick daughter. Because she got the money at the exact right time, she cured her daughter, paid off her debts, her husband went back to work, and they saved up. This means they saved an entire family from total ruin, which to him is the best profit of all. She replies that she is with him, but while she was tracking Dong, she saw him stealing ID cards from homeless people to take out loans under their names, along with 2 of his friends. She suspects something major is going on and promises to look into it because the kid is definitely involved in illegal business. The grandfather looks at her and notices that her hand is injured, so he decides to hire security guards to protect her. He calls one of his men named Paik and tells him the specifications he needs: young men, heavily built, professionals in martial arts, who have won international medals and truly deserve to be real bodyguards. At the exact same time, we see on the news that the construction of the most important hotel downtown has been halted due to COVID, and the investors have gone bankrupt. We see the investor, Myeong, sitting with the bank vice president, telling him he will take a loan of $400 million and will return $300 million to buy the hotel. The bank official is astonished and asks what he is talking about, but Hong replies that the bank must also share the burden of the crisis the people are going through. The deputy governor tells them to calm down so they can find a solution. Just then, Chief Myeong enters. He is the president of Smile Capital and the boss of the biggest loan shark gang that lends people money at double the interest rate. His entire operation is completely illegal. He manages to resolve the issue, telling Hong that he is used to doing good deeds, just like his boss did with Hong's father back when he was heavily in debt and begged for $6 billion. He insults him in a sophisticated way and adds that he will pay the remaining $100 million because he heard the money will be used to build a hotel. And frankly, it has been his life's dream to open a nightclub on the rooftop. Seeing no other option but to agree, they accept. And because this gang leader wants to appear kind on the inside, he adds that if the COVID pandemic spreads out of control, they will open this hotel for the infected patients who can't afford hospital bills, pretending to care about the poor. Myeong leaves, and his wife is waiting outside. She hands him a makeup remover wipe, revealing a large scar on his face that he always hides. His top lieutenant, Jun, meets with his enforcers, Byom and Ogap, telling them they must collect all their money from the market immediately and gather a massive amount of cash because they are entering a major project. They immediately begin spreading across the city, offering low-interest loans to people, including Kim's mother. Later, the gang goes to celebrate their successful deal, sitting with the deputy governor, who finalized everything for them. The governor calls him, saying he will support the nightclub project, and they all rejoice. Myeong hands a bribe to the deputy governor, telling him not to worry because it is just a small gift and nobody will ever know. It turns out there is a hidden camera filming everything to blackmail him later. After the official leaves, the boss agrees with his gang to start collecting the interest immediately because they need the cash desperately. As bad luck would have it, they go straight to Kim's mother. She doesn't understand how she could take a loan and be forced to pay interest the very next day. Jun tells her there is a clause stating a 10% interest rate within the first 24 hours, and if she doesn't pay, the interest increases by 20%, climbing every single day. She tells him she doesn't have the money and is not paying, so he menacingly tells her it is her choice. She calls her son to tell him what is happening, but before he can even understand, they begin smashing her cafe to pieces. Our hero rushes over immediately, charging into them like a lion and breaking their facial bones one by one. Ogap takes his turn getting beaten until Kim reaches Jun. Jun panics, lets go of the mother, and asks who sent him. Just then, the big boss Myeong walks in and says if Kim doesn't pay what is owed, he will crush him, but Kim fires back that Myeong will pay for what he destroyed first. The boss grabs a chair, sits down to watch, and orders Ogap to teach him a lesson. Kim doesn't hesitate. He attacks Ogap and strikes him repeatedly, but Ogap is built like iron and doesn't break. The two unleash an intense fight with matched energy, but Ogap proves to be stronger, leaving a mark on Kim and throwing him to the ground. The boss stands up, wakes Kim up, and carves the exact same scar onto Kim's face as a souvenir. He warns him that if he doesn't bring the money, or if he reports this to the police, he needs to prepare a shroud for his mother. Kim goes to the hospital and receives 30 stitches. Unfortunately, his spirit is broken. The doctor tells him he will need plastic surgery because he is a young man and they must fix his face, but Kim replies that it's too expensive and he can't afford it. He thanks her and goes to his friend Jin, who reviews the contract and explains that the gang designed clauses completely in their favor. If they don't clear the debt in the next 2 days, the gang will double it. Calculating the numbers, they realize they need to raise $10 million, and Kim has no idea where to get it, with not a single penny in his pocket. Jin starts calling everyone he knows to see if anyone can help, including a friend who offers to give them the money at only 1% interest, but under the condition that Kim must work with him. When Kim asks about the nature of the job, he learns that he would have to go to people who haven't paid, beat them up, and take their money by force. He refuses to oppress poor people the way the gang oppressed him. He leaves the money and walks away with Jin, thanking him for his help. Jin invites him for a meal as promised at his aunt's restaurant. During the meal, Jin calls their last hope, Mr. Paik, whom the grandfather had asked to recruit bodyguards. We notice that Paik is completely unsatisfied with the applicants, viewing them all as soft, modern kids. When one of them tries to object, Paik effortlessly slams him to the ground, showing how strict he is. We learn that Paik is also a former Marine officer. Our heroes rush over to him, and Paik offers to advance them the money if they work as bodyguards for a girl named Cha. Jin objects that the massive debt would take 2 years to pay off, but Paik replies that Mr. Choi helps people in need without taking interest, adding that if they are accepted and prove their worth, he will help them. They immediately agree. Paik calls Mr. Choi to inform him, and Choi tells him to have the driver look into it. Our heroine Cha walks in, fresh from tracking Dong. She recounts what she saw. Dong is indeed stealing the ID cards of the homeless, taking interest-bearing loans with them, and delivering the cash to a man named Jun, who works at Smile Capital. The grandfather realizes this means he is setting up shell companies with these IDs to defraud people, noting that this exact scheme happened back in the year 2000, where someone amassed 6 billion and fled to the Philippines. Cha asks what his end was, and he answers that the man died, telling her to stay away from the matter because he will appoint a bodyguard for her. She refuses. The next day, the driver arrives with background files on our heroes and hands them to Mr. Choi, who is highly impressed by Kim's record. He goes to meet Kim alone at a restaurant, refusing to let Jin inside. Kim recounts his life and what happened to him, though he conceals his scar, explaining that he needs the money to clear his mother's loan. Mr. Choi agrees to hire him and tells him to leave his number so they can call him. Kim leaves to reassure his friend, thanking him for standing by him and invites him to eat at his place. Jin sits babbling and eating until he talks his mother's ears off. Kim brings the food and the doorbell rings. When he answers, it is the driver holding the exact amount of our hero's debt. He says Mr. Choi tells him this is a 2-year salary advance and expects to see him at his library tomorrow at exactly 10 a.m. Our hero weeps with joy and rushes inside to make his mother happy. She feels she has become a heavy burden on him, but he tells her that if he doesn't live for her, he has no anyone else to live for. The next day, Kim wakes up early and clears the debt before it accrues further. He then goes to Mr. Choi, along with Jin, who won't stop bragging about his own military achievements. Jin babbles endlessly about his 3 years in the military, admitting he was previously a driver, adding that Kim and he are 2 bodies, but 1 soul, working shoulder to shoulder. He begs to work with him to earn a salary too. Worn down by Jin's relentless begging, Mr. Choi hires him as well. He tells them they haven't met the girl yet, explaining that they must meet Cha, the girl they are responsible for protecting, and convince her to accept them as her bodyguards. Kim asks what happens if she refuses, and Choi replies that they must return the money. Kim panics, realizing he would be stuck in an endless loop of paying and borrowing. They wait for her, pacing around the library, discovering that the books are actually packed with hidden cash. Kim tells Jin that he has seen Cha before, and it wasn't the best first encounter. Jin replies that he should leave this opening move to him because he will convince her. Jin starts talking and enters a relentless argument to get her to hire them. She snaps at him to shut up because he is exhausting her, telling him he has no job with her. Kim begs her, saying he already spent the money and absolutely must work. Taking pity on them, she agrees. She sits down to tell them about Dong and her operations, showing them a photo of Jun. Kim exclaims that he knows him and that he's the one who wanted to beat his mother, promising severe revenge if he catches him. She tells them that first, they must monitor Dong to find out how many ID cards he steals a day so they can calculate how much money he is gathering. They begin their night shift, tracking Dong and his friend. Cha demands that they do not act on their own or interfere in anything that doesn't concern them. They follow them into the subway wearing caps as a disguise. They watch Dong and his men convincing homeless people to hand over their IDs, claiming they will register them in a charity organization to receive a monthly salary, food, and drinks. They tell them this is exclusive to a limited number of chosen people, so they mustn't tell anyone because if the numbers increase, the program will be canceled. Naturally, the homeless people believe it. Dong manages to collect 4 ID cards, but a 5th man recognizes Dong because he took his card before and never returned it. Dong and his enforcers begin beating the man severely. As usual, our hero cannot stand by. He disobeys orders and charges in, breaking their facial bones. Dong pulls a knife, prompting Jin to join the fray. They subdue the gang and decide to call an ambulance to save the poor homeless man. When Cha sees what happened, she calls Kim, who explains the situation. She yells at him and hangs up. Jin calls her back, and for the first time, instead of rambling, he apologizes sincerely, asking for a 5-minute chance to defend themselves. She tells them she will see them at the library. Kim laments about the situation, but Jin answers that he knows they did the right thing, but since they ruined their first mission, they have to apologize. They head to the library. When they explain the situation to Cha, she snaps, asking why they got involved since she has been tracking Dong for a year and a half, only for them to ruin everything at the very end. Jin leaves after she mocks his shoes, but Kim stands firmly before her and says he does not regret what he did, because if he had left Dong to keep keep beating that man, he would be no different from him. Our heroine feels a pang of regret. After they leave, she sends them a text message, apologizing and asking to see them tomorrow. At that moment, we see the gang boss Myeong explaining his plan to Jun. He intends to build a nightclub on top of the hotel, drawing the wealthy and country officials to gamble there. They will film them secretly, extort all their money, leak the videos to the police, cause the hotel's stock to crash, and then buy the hotel themselves using the nightclub's profits to start fresh. The next day, our heroes meet Cha at the agreed time, but they spot Jun and Dong arriving. They turn off the lights and hide, wondering how the gang found their location. Kim remembers that the first time they met Cha while she was chasing Dong, she was wearing a cap identical to the ones they wore in the subway. Dong realized they were a team, and he recognized Jun. This is exactly what happened. Mr. Choi and the driver walk in, learning about the situation. Choi asks who this Jun works for, and Kim answers, Smile Capital. Choi orders them to stay completely away from this matter. Cha argues with her grandfather, saying they cannot keep leaving the money to scammers, showing him Kim's scar, and adding that the person who disfigured his face is the one who took his money. Choi asks Kim if he knows who did it, and Kim replies that it was the president of the company, noting only that he has a scar on his face. Mr. Choi is completely shattered by what he hears. He dismisses them and asks the driver to verify the identity of the Smile Capital president. The driver calls back and confirms that it is indeed Myeong. Choi flashes back to his youth when he was healthy and owned the largest finance firm in the country, where his entire business was entirely dirty and illegal, and Pike and Myeong were his enforcers. One day, Choi decided to liquidate the company and leave the usury business forever. When he returned home, his guard called to report 2 thieves in the office. Choi went there and found Myeong without his mask. He subdued him, breaking his facial bones, and kept striking the man opening the safe to find out who sent them. Myeong sneaked up behind Choi and stabbed him with a knife. Choi fought back relentlessly, slicing Myeong's face and scarring him. However, Myeong regained consciousness, lifted Choi, and threw him out of the window. Choi fell violently, and though they assumed he was dead, he was only paralyzed. They stole his safe and everything inside. Choi snaps out of his memories as Cha approaches him. He advises her to stay away from this path because it only ends in death, and she obediently agrees. She goes with her team to eat at their usual restaurant, but they face a shocking sight. The restaurant is completely destroyed. They discover this happened because one of the boss's men took a loan through a shell company under the owner's name, defaulted, and left her heavily in debt. They resolve to continue their path to avenge Kim, his mother, the restaurant owner, and everyone oppressed by the boss. They resume tracking Dong, but it appears he has aligned with Jun to lure them into a trap. They follow him into a tunnel where Dong calls out to them, and the gang arrives in cars. Cha notices the trap and calls her grandfather, who contacts his old crew, including Park and Han, telling them to save the kids because they are in danger. Back with our heroes, they are engaging the gang in a brutal melee. Every time they take down an enforcer, he gets back up to strike, but our boys are incredibly tough and systematically break their bones, displaying devastating moves. However, their physical energy begins to drain. Our heroine steps in to help, using her taser to shock and drop anyone who approaches until they clear the area and escape. Park arrives at Kim's mother's location. The moment Jun spots Park in the melee, he panics and kidnaps Kim's mother out of fear. Park handles Dong's men, breaking their bones, while Dong flees with the mother. Park pursues him until Dong panics and lets her go. Park corners him, fires a weapon into Dong's leg, and marks him so he can't run again. When Han arrives later, the conflict has settled and everyone has dispersed. They all gather at Mr. Choi's house. The grandfather berates our heroes, telling them to stay out of it because his men and he will handle it. Our heroes apologize for what happened and go sit with Kim's mother at the grandfather's house. The mother checks on Cha, thinking she might make a suitable bride for her son, and asks about the shelter her grandfather wants her to live in. Cha answers that it belongs to him, explaining that her biological parents died and Mr. Choi adopted her, becoming a grandfather and father to her. A message arrives from the grandfather directing them to transfer the money from the library tomorrow. At the same time, Park sits with Mr. Choi to map out the gang's structure. Their boss Myeong is backed by a corrupt police officer named Kang, who handles all legal cover-ups with the police, along with the infamous Myeong, who betrayed Choi long ago. They plan how to eliminate the gang. The scene shifts to the gang boss Myeong, who visits Dong at the hospital after he was pulverized. He asks who did this to them, and as they describe the attackers, Myeong immediately recognizes them. He tells his crew that long ago, he worked with a man, minding his own business, until the man decided to halt his operations. So Myeong decided to strike and eliminate him entirely. Myeong and he wiped out all his his men except Park, who is a master with knives. He explains that what's coming will be incredibly difficult, warning his men to prepare because there is no room for rest. He orders Myeong and Kang to seize the money kept at Choi's place, which amounts to around 50 million. Jun confirms that this is the remaining cash needed to buy the hotel, and Myeong rejoices that their luck is shining. The next day, they strike the library to steal the cash, just as our heroes arrive to move it. The enforcers arrive with armored transport trucks. Myeong follows our heroes into the vault, launching a violent clash. Finally, the time for revenge has come. Our hero against Myeong.